Oh, okay.
Yep.
Wow.
Also,
Gotta coordinate this a little bit better, Demise, for next time.
you know what? That's on me actually.
Yeah, it's alright. Well, hello everyone. Let me make sure I actually change my stream. I think I want to be on this page. Uh, Maybe? Weird. Okay, it looks kinda broken. Who knows why that's the case? Okay, there we go. That's sort of better. Oh, whatever. I'll fix the screen here in just a moment. Welcome on in to, well, this would be Unrestricted Lorefare with Beacon Space ReDiscovery. If you're new here, welcome for joining us, and to everybody watching from my good friend Demeist stream, hello and welcome. I'm Xavier Stordes. You may also know me on Discord as Lichmaster98, but I tend to go by Xavier within this community. So, hopefully, you'll get to enjoy our new show today. We're getting ready to embark on Session 0, so we'll be setting up the world of Rediscovery within Ironsworn's Starforged system, which we're excited to play in a GM-less manner. Before I tell you a little bit more about Beacon Space and give you some background that you may or may not know, let's turn things over to my co-host, Demeist, to introduce themselves.
Well, in case you guys don't know already, hi, it's me, Demeist. We're doing things a little bit differently here, mainly because camera problems are a whole hell of a thing. But yeah, Xavier and Ilaria and I were talking about this a while ago, and so we were very excited about the possibility of being able to run not only a TTRPG show for my own channel, but something else to add to the Beacon Space mythos as it was. So yeah, I'm very excited. And then also, there's somebody else here with us who you may or may not recognize if you've been paying attention.
Hello, me. I'm Ender Friend, aka Ilaria, and I am a Twitch mod for both the Mice stream and Luch's stream, and I'm also a faction rep on Unrestricted Lorefare for one of the factions, the Alchemala Syndicate. And I'm excited to start this wild and wacky adventure that I hope we're going to be able to have.
Well, great. Thanks for introducing yourselves, everyone. Let's go ahead and see if I can... I think I fixed my scene, so I've got the correct Chrome window selected to actually share the setting truth document that we're going to get started in just a moment, rather than what is supposed to be my window of notes documents. But if you don't know anything about the world of Beacon Space, allow me to give you a brief introduction. So, Beacon Space is a setting that started off for a Stars Without Numbers faction turn game, as Ilaria mentioned. So we've adapted the rules for the normally GM-run faction turn and created them to be a player-run system. So the players actually take control of the faction's actions, send them in to me every month, where we process them on the faction turn stream, which you may be used to if you're joining from the Unrestricted Lorefare channel. And so Beacon Space itself, though, is a little bit bigger than just that faction turn stream. It also encompasses all of the lore and the setting of this sci-fi system. So, I've got a small background about Beacon Space. I'll go ahead and read out here as some introduction, if you don't know what it is. So Beacon Space is a sector of promise, hope, demise, and misfortune, but most simply, a new start for the numerous species and cultures that continue to arrive in its space, even long after the Great Activation. While the origin and source of the beacon are still unknown, even to me, I hope that this information prepares you to discover for yourself what the beacon has to offer. Amongst the sector may be a mode of living unfamiliar to you with the use of self-powered travel relays, often referred to as gates. These gates enable ships to accomplish in hours what our most advanced FTL drive would require weeks or months to traverse. However, in the current era, gates' unmaintained usage and traffic bottlenecks and limits the effective transit speed. Also, I'd be remiss not to mention a still pending investigation into the glitch, which may have significantly reduced Beacon Space's navigable sector count. Outside of this unique FTL transit feature, new arrivals often find themselves afflicted by the bleed. This elusive yet physical truth of reality manifests itself in some species. Those capable of focusing and controlling this reality are collectively referred to as lenses, though unique subcultures and different names exist. This name does aptly describe one's role in focusing the bleed in space to produce different wondrous effects and control what may already be there. Beacon Space as a setting is more diverse than one could plausibly want to imagine, with space fauna to all kinds of species inhabiting even the most inhospitable of planets. As a new arrival, you most likely find yourself in the core of Beacon Space, someplace I think we may or may not find ourselves for rediscovery. A rich region where the major factions vie for political control. While a complete coverage of the planet and sectors may be available to us in the near future, I hope we all get a chance to explore the Beacon Space sector and discover the mystery and wonder for all. Not me having to live edit my document because I make references to sections that don't exist in the yet-to-be-named setting guide. So that hopefully serves as a generic introduction to what the world of Beacon Space is all about. Demise, Larry, do you think I missed anything in introducing what the world of Beacon Space is?
Nothing that comes to mind at the moment. I think that was quite a good intro.
That it's heckin' a lot of fun, and that you guys all put in a ton of effort just to do, honestly, what is perhaps some better storytelling than is available in modern syndicated entertainment. So, you know, I'm a little biased because I'm a part of it, but yeah.
Well, with that note, maybe we should figure out what the world of a rediscovery looks like as we get ready to figure out what exactly our session is going to take place in. How do you say we launch into working out Ironsworn's details with Starforged?
I think that would be phenomenal. And I think more than that, right? Like, we've all done a little bit of role-playing in our own time and in our own way. So one of the things that I think is interesting is I've actually played with Ironsworn a little bit, both independently and also specifically with Alaria. But I've never done anything with Starforged before. I think out of the three of us, Alaria is perhaps the most experienced with that system right now.
I mean, I've still never played it myself, but I have gone through the rules a number of times, kind of just as it's come out, because I have followed it since it was like first announced a couple years back.
Cool. Well, I haven't gotten a chance to actually play an Ironsworn game, but I have read the rules, and well, I've played plenty of other RPGs, so I'm sure it'll be a quite fun experience. So I think getting started for setting up our Starforged sector, we have some adaptation of setting truths to take care of, given that our world of Beacon Space makes a few different decisions than the default setting for Ironsworn Starforged may assume. So we're going to go through the setting truths document here together and collaboratively figure out how this represents itself within the world of Beacon Space. So I think one thing to note is, especially for people who are familiar with the system, with the setting of Beacon Space, is we're aiming for this campaign, from my understanding, to sort of be on the frontier. So you may be used to seeing in the faction turn streams, or even occasionally they show up in the lore streams, the map of Beacon Space's sector. I think for this setting and for this exploration, we're really pushing to say, you know, we're exploring places that aren't even a hex yet, that aren't even in the faction term parlance, that they may not even be a point of interest. We're actually trying to find those regions. Does that sound right to everyone here?
Yeah, I mean, I think it almost defeats the purpose of us exploring space that is already familiar, or space that is necessarily easily navigable to, because if you guys don't know Unrestricted Lorefare already, there is a rich world already. So we're trying to sort of push the edge of known space, as it were, by writing in this already existent setting. But more than that, we're also trying to experience. I just think it'd be fair to say rediscover new frontiers, as it were.
There may be a reason why the name was picked. So with that said, how about we get started with question 1 on the setting truth document here. I think we have, 13 or 14 questions to get through, so hopefully it doesn't take us all that long.
Yeah, these are just pulled from the kind of default truth workbook that comes with the Starforged kit, and I've adapted some of them slightly just because they don't 100% match with how Beacon Space is otherwise, because like you mentioned, there's some assumptions that are made under the default setting that don't quite line up with the pre-existing stuff we know about Beacon Space.
Yeah, which just means we'll have to make some fun adaptation of the rules as we go. So perhaps getting started with the Cataclysm then seems like a reasonable space to do so. The question asked here is, what catastrophic event left a lasting impact on the sector, forcing its inhabitants to flee or adapt? So I guess I'll go ahead and start here since I read out the question, but I'm thinking for the most part this is going to be a reason to leave and to try to find these frontiers sort of goes all the way back to the glitch. So even though in the history of Beacon Space that's some long time ago that this event actually occurred, that I think is probably the catastrophic event that spurred this need for adventurers or explorers to go find these locations, right? That destroyed the gate network, which is how individuals used to transit throughout the sector, and it provided what is intended to be really fast transportation. Of course, it's not the way it's working in the current era, but that was how it worked hundreds of years ago, and so if that's the case, and we have to go refine these sectors and find ways to transit to them via other conventional FTL means, then that sort of seems to be the cataclysm that would be useful here. What do you all think?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Because in terms of finding new points of interest is what you had highlighted. That's something that we might be doing, because there's already existing ones on the main map, but those are more, this place has been identified, it needs to be explored more in depth. So I definitely think the glitch as a reason for these broken off areas being of importance makes sense.
Device?
Plus, yeah, I was just going to say on a quick sidebar is there's definitely something to be said for the nature of travel has changed. If you do actually go watch the actual primary Unrestricted Lorefare channel, right, there's sort of a lot of emphasis on it being a more contemporary science fiction setting, but there is definitely a, I don't know if change on the wind is the right phrase to use for this. When you think of space travel and you think of futuristic settings, there are sort of a lot of preconceived notions about what faster than light travel looks like, and about what that entire experience is like, which I think makes the gates in Beacon Space such a pivotal part of the discussion. But yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, because one of the actual lore truths about Beacon Space was that travel takes time, which was just a statement in and of itself, and I may be paraphrasing the actual wording in the truth document a little bit, but that introduces this interesting notation with, okay, the idea behind, most of the time you see FTL gates, they tend to be presented as an instantaneous, nearly transit between point A and point B, or you jump into a wormhole and you just appear on the other side. And within Beacon Space's setting, that may be true for how the gates operate explicitly. As soon as you jump into the gate, the actual transit time between the two locations is perceived to be really short, but it's now the fact that these gates are run down, they're slow to use. The actual way of transgressing a gate requires attaching yourself to a larger ship that is designed to make the journey. An individual vessel just isn't designed to jump into a gate, as it may be. So all of that process takes time, and it ends up that, if you just had whatever the sector's conventional FTL drive is, it takes just about as long to travel between point A and point B. It's just time spent in a different way.
Exactly. This is one of the things that I will say is so fascinating, is that the original glitch, sort of as its initial conception, is sort of like the way that horror movies go, and the way that a lot of these settings and premise go. Premise, the premise, the thing. Is that showing less is more, right? Like I do think that there is, and we can definitely, throughout the process of playing Ironsworn, which is a very narrative focused game and less about like you kill 10 goblins and you've gotten 100 XP and congrats, you're now at the next level. It is so much more narratively focused that I think we could definitely spend time exploring what the glitch was, how did it happen, all of those sorts of things, but leaving it as is, which is it is the glitch, this is the entire process, frees us up a lot, actually, to focus on more interesting things, like what happens with humanity after the fact. So
let's double check that everyone agrees with the section I've ended up typing out as the summary of our answers here, with being the glitch as the cataclysm, and then just some background that it occurred a while ago, forcing. I didn't want to use the word explorers, so I've coined discoverers as my word of choice.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah, and discoverers go out and I've used explore, but I guess I should say they go out and discover. I should keep my terminology consistent. And that, this notion that travel is no longer instantaneous like it once was, and it now takes a significant amount of time, and that's what's forcing its inhabitants to adapt. I don't hear any discontent with that answer.
I think that makes sense.
Cool. Then I think we can move on to question 2 then. I read the question 1, so Demeiss, do you wanna read out question 2 and get us started there?
Sounds good to me. We're looking at Exodus, which is, we're talking about why did travelers journey to the sector and how did they reach it? And my computer is unhappy with Google Docs right now. So
no!
I am no longer able to click or type, and I'm getting a nice, juicy trying to connect message off.
Oh no!
Oh boy. Well, I can take care of typing, that's alright. You could just answer the question verbally, but I think this one may have an answer already defined by Beacon Space's lore that we can just yoink over. Why did people journey to the sector? I think I covered it in the introduction. There was a beacon, and it is calling people here. In fact, I actually have a... I'm just gonna take my comments from another document that probably makes sense to put here, so it's quite long, but this is a little bit of a short story about the actual event that was probably why people traveled to Beacon Space. So this is intended to be a first-hand account, so written from somebody who was interviewing an individual talking about the seeing of the beacon activation. We don't know what species this first-hand account is from. We don't know their background. We don't know how long they've been in Beacon Space. But here's the story that I've picked together with a few of the people of helping to build the setting. So, a streak of green light across the sky lasted no more than a moment and was gone just as suddenly as it had appeared, but its impact has left a legacy on my people. Our scientists were fascinated and tried to isolate what it could mean. Our artists were inspired, and an entire art form, beaconism, arose, marked by momentary invocations of green light. Great theologians explained the symbol as a sign from the deities, some considering it an ill omen, yet others claimed it was the promised land. Politicians muddled the debate even more, controlling major investments and identifying this phenomenon. In the end, none of the above enabled our great flight to the sector, but the acceptance of our own planet's demise and the lure of the promise of a new place to establish our community. And now, after a far journey, we arrived only to discover just how many people had gotten there first. So again, that's intended to be like somebody reporting on a first-hand account of traveling to the Beacon Space sector. So I know that was just sort of maybe antithetical to the shared GM nature, given the sort of background I have with the setting. But what is people's thoughts on this being the reason people came to the sector? And at least a shared story that we can all relate to for our characters, after all.
I think it makes the most sense, right? Like, we are talking about it being a shared experience, as it were, but overall, I would argue that sort of the core conceit here, in part at least, is that this is an already existent world. And even though we did say there's not going to be a game master, as it were, I think it makes sense for us to defer in some ways to sort of the stuff that's already written. So let's say we have a situation involving the Children of the Vein. We have a situation involving a member of the Starlit Court. Obviously, we have sort of free creative license to interface with the people that we make up for these stories and that sort of thing. But I think the thing that makes the most sense is that we take the handlebars or the rails, as they want, and we play within that space. So having it be perhaps maybe what we're rediscovering is some people who didn't make it to the Beacon or things of that nature. I'm actually really excited to interface with that. So
yeah, or we may run into an entirely new travelers making their first arrival to Beacon Space, which is an event known to occur semi-regularly within the world.
Lots of things are freezing up on my side now, including the text-to-speech. So I'm going to switch back over to another screen real fast if my computer doesn't continue to lock up.
That sounds like a good plan. In the meantime, maybe we can move on to the next question then? While you try to make sure your computer doesn't entirely lock up on you?
Yeah,
Seems
sounds
like it'd be quite bad.
Because I'm still able to read this. Oh, wait, no, hold on. Some things are working. Good. I'm a big fan.
Interesting. It lets you scroll in the document, but it's not updating it.
Interesting.
Well, in the interim, we've got communities, which I think is an excellent sort of stopgap of what form do communities in the sector take? Because I think we have a very exhaustive answer to that. Right?
Perhaps we do. I mean, there are lots of different species that have been developed by several of the different factions, and then, of course, the factions themselves are communities. But I actually want to slightly reframe this question and actually phrase it as in the what do communities on the edge of exploration look like? So in the region we actually don't see, what do we imagine those communities look like? So people who haven't made it into Beacon Space yet, or communities that are still isolated from the region called Beacon Space. Now, these could be legacy capital F factions that used to be super powerful and would have been represented mechanically in the faction turn, but they were isolated, so they're maybe their forge world was completely cut off from their agricultural world, and how did each of those communities adapt over time and react to the situation they found themselves in. Perhaps those are the communities that are sort of more interesting to answer for this question. Going on to that guide rails, we have guide rails for where could our backgrounds be from, where are the characters that we're going to play, what's their community look like. Sort of maybe the interesting question is, what do communities out on the edge of the frontier space look like?
Yeah, that's a good point, because I would have to imagine that while they still are quite different from each other and different from the sector proper, they're probably not huge, I would have to imagine, just because if they are either traveling to Beacon Space still, or if they are in a place where they've been cut off from the rest of the sector, I would assume the amount of resources they have available to them is not infinite, and therefore, as a result of that, they would then have to not have kind of sprawling civilization, to be much more of a small scale living.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I do always love the idea of a flotilla civilization, and I don't think this is necessarily going to be the end case scenario for some of the communities that we face out there. But at some point in time, I do want us to come across a derelict ghost graveyard, as it were, or a ghost ship graveyard, right? Where it's some sort of community of scavengers or something like that. And those are always some of my favorite things to play around with. So,
given we have two nomadic factions, it seems within the realm of possibility that there could have been more than that are just out there somewhere.
Yeah, and at least as far as a mechanical representation below the level of a faction, the new asset for the Anchorage station sort of embodies the ability of packaging up, limited production resources that's probably more than just a single ship. In all actuality, a collection of ships that are able to transit quite successfully across the cosmos. I've made a note for the ghost ship graveyards with a community of scavengers, so we can remember that one when we're coming across encounters in the wild.
Yes! We're gonna roll it in at the time. It's gonna be like, oh no, why are the ghost ships here now?
It's gonna be the worst time for them to show up, I'm sure. That said, that may cover what communities look like. As far as we mentioned, the what do communities look like back in Beacon Space, we have a wiki to go look at, and when in doubt, we have friends we can go message on the server to help answer some questions we may need to encounter. Well, Ilaria, I'm going to leave the next question to you, given I think you have more familiarity with Ironsworn than I do, so answering that question may be better suited for your presentation.
So, the next one is about iron, and so in Ironsworn, the base game, the significance of iron is because that's much more like a fantasy style setting. It's what you kind of swear on in order to make these special promises that hold you to your word. In Starforge, they go with a similar approach, but you don't have to necessarily stay in such a kind of mystical connection. That's definitely a direction you can go in, but basically when you make these special promises, because Iron Vows still exist in Starforged, what form do they take, and what do they mean to your character in general. They don't have to necessarily be the same, but this is kind of the baseline defining of that. So I'm curious of your guys' thoughts on this one, just because it can vary quite heavily, and it's not really something that Beacon Space has a precedent for that I'm aware of. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure going back to that, different factions have ways of making promises or interacting with those sort of social contracts, but I'm not sure there is a specific, universal beacon-wide, here's how I'm making a declaration that I will do something. I mean, I assume if we take a look at free agents, for example, there are mission contracts that get signed and payment gets exchanged, but that's sort of a different relationship than the one we're discussing here.
Yeah. So with this one, I was almost thinking that at least from the scope we're looking at, maybe we want to approach it from like our crew and their associated patrons or whoever they may end up being. Where do we stand on how this works? Because I think trying to name this on too broad a scale is going to make it very ambiguous.
I mean, I wonder if an interesting way of looking at this is the vows get sworn against the ship. As the representation quite often for if you go to sailing ships or whatever, that if you're on a ship in the middle of the ocean, everybody on that ship is important, but the ship is probably more important than any individual person working on it, right? If the ship goes down, everybody's in trouble. So the idea of making a vow against the sanctity of the ship seems like something which is like you're making a promise, and perhaps even that's part of joining the crew, is like you're making a promise and swearing on the ship and making sure that it survives amongst all else.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Because especially given, like, in a more traditional like sea-based ship, you got a chance if the ship goes down. In space, even if you can survive in space, you're not gonna have a good time. It's very far.
Yeah, and especially within our frontiers of space, right? Like a passing ship may be several years away.
Yeah, just like especially with like playing with the idea of swearing on iron as well, right? Like original Ironsworn had iron as this like precious and rare resource. But in Starforged, obviously the metals could still be rare, but in a very different way. So yeah, this is actually really exciting. I really like the idea of swearing on the ship itself.
Yeah, and I mean we have pulling from the setting truths again, we do have this claim that running a spaceship is expensive and keeping them in shape requires effort and maintenance. So that really also ties into that. There's both this physical side of maintaining the ship, but then there's also this metaphysical, which is promises made against the health of the spaceship. In some ways, I'm sure we may find that our adherence to certain vows may adapt depending on how healthy the spaceship is, which is an interesting juxtaposition.
Everything's fun and games until the ship starts having one too many drive problems.
Oh no, and then it's no fun. It's just stress.
For sure. Do we have, maybe this is something we actually discover in play, but do we have some specific way of phrasing that request?
I think we might need to come back to that, just because it might depend on our characters and their relationship to the ship, like what they do.
Yeah. Characters, got it. That sounds like we've answered this question then. So perhaps we can move on to what are laws like in the sector? Are they present? Are they universal? Like a lot of things on here, they depend on the faction that is ruling the sector you find yourself in. So I think maybe the interesting question to ask here sort of starts to look at, the setting we're going to find ourselves in, which is sort of, who's our ship from? Which one of us owns the ship? What's that person's background? And that really seems like that'll have a bigger impact on what are the laws on the ship like, because we'll be pulling, I assume, from that faction. Now, one obvious choice may be, since the two of you both find yourselves as part of the Ogomala Syndicate, that it would perhaps make a lot of sense to claim that we're associated with the Syndicate in some way. I know what's the... you all have a notion of branches isn't what you call them, but different groups within the Syndicate, right? What's the word I'm
the lodges, or are you talking about a different thing?
Yes, the lodges. Sorry, yeah, I was there are several different groups within Beacon Space that have a similar notion, but they have different names, and I was blanking on Agama Syndicate's name. I was coming up with the groups for the Starlit Court in my mind, and I was like, that's not right here. But yeah, so it's like, maybe it's an exploration lodge that one of us pulls a background to, or makes a claim to, or is where the ship is from, or whatever, and that would make sense for the laws. But is there a different faction you all would rather sort of have that history and that tied to?
So one of the ideas we were kicking back and forth a while ago was, instead of this being tied to a specific faction, we're actually tied to the Telos station itself, which I don't know how comfortable we are with that and whether or not that overlaps with free agents in any meaningful way, but I am still a big fan of that, actually. So
yeah, I think Telos, which for those who aren't aware is the planet at the center of Beacon Space. It's actually in a sector called Center, and on the hex map is also the center hex. So very fitting in that regards. But yeah, I mean, having Telos be the point where we always return to makes a lot of sense. So it would be reasonable that that's a tie we have. But even if that is the case, which the planet itself is controlled by the Children of the Vein, it wouldn't be unreasonable to say that our ship still belongs to some other faction. And so perhaps there is this juxtaposition between the rules in and on the Telos station, which is where we're always coming back to as sort of whatever the end of a successful or failed exploration run looks like, and the way the ship operates on a day-to-day. You actually get back to shore leave and the rules change could be an interesting way to look at things. If we could pull from either a faction as that sponsor, or again, there are several other entities that would be capable of supporting a spaceship. Could be the Telos Terra group itself, but that would be an interesting expansion for their general observations and responsibilities.
You're now looking for planets to terraform.
Hey, it wouldn't be out of the question, right? Like they finished terraforming Telos, so. But it sort of seems like the answer we've reached here, and somebody should correct me if I'm wrong, which is that obviously laws aren't universal, and it depends on sort of who's in charge. But overall, I would think it's more the sense of morality of the characters present that influences the way they interact and the way a society interacts.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Yeah, there's definitely something here with like maritime law and like what you were saying with like which faction the boat belongs to. I'm wondering if even it goes so far as to say like, because I don't Beacon Space is not a particularly centrally organized institution. So I would argue that like it might be as simple as like, you are now in this faction sector space. any previous permits you had, any previous agreements you had, any previous anything is now all thrown out the window. And like, I think it's just like laws are mutable, laws are shifting. Any promise you had made to you last week is not going to be binding for this week, sort of situation.
Well,
Yeah,
there's also
Oh, go ahead.
there's also the matter that if we're going to be in like new uncharted areas, that like they probably don't know the laws. They probably have different laws that we don't know, and that's a whole time.
Yeah, for sure. So I think that the sort of question, perhaps, that it's morality, as far as the ship is concerned, it's the morality that is more important than the explicit laws, but that they do
True.
exist and they're not universal. We can't assume to know that, what goes on Telos will go on Idarast, which is fine on some other planet. Pick Gome as another option. These all have different ways of operating. Your permits aren't valid everywhere. You need to navigate that carefully, which is why, at least for cargo transit, there's a whole industry around supporting cargo transit in Beacon Space. So Demeist, I see it looks like you got your Google Chrome window with docs operating a little bit better. So you wanna take the next question?
Yeah, some things are still just going buck wild on my side in a way that you know what? I should have probably gone live on my bot channel like we were talking about, but I have unfortunately been a little behind. For some reason, it has decided to revert to some previous versions of my OBS save, so I'm unironically behind the scenes trying to scramble and make things look slightly better than 3 boxes on a page, but we'll get over it.
That's all right.
But yeah, so next one, and I think I really like this one actually for a number of personal biases, but we're looking at religion. What forms of religion are present in the sector? And I think what's really cool about this, and potentially also maybe a little problematic depending on who you're talking to, is Beacon Space does not formally acknowledge. Well, okay. I think it's safe to say that every faction, of course, is responsible for any sort of belief systems or structures in their works, but for the Aguamala Syndicate, for example, we had decided a long time ago that we were going to do it's not El Arpon is the thing that we've given so many different names.
That is a planet. El Destino is what you're looking for.
El Destino. Also, sorry, at one point in time during like some backroom conversations, Seymour's revolver ended up getting called El Arpon. And so when I saw the planet got named that, I was like, Seymour needs a new name for his revolver.
No. He named the planet.
Yeah,
He's just that famous.
Yeah. So I think it's less like, I don't think there's a mega church out there, right? I don't think there's some sort of like orbiting super church that is in charge of all schools of thought or anything like that. I don't think it's very centralized. I think if there are sort of commonly agreed upon beliefs, those are more, I'm not going to say happenstance, but definitely more of a gradual process, right? Like this is a belief system that has come from, maybe it's a diffusion of beliefs from wherever they came from previously, or maybe it's a belief that was found en route. One of the things that's really cool about Beacon Space is that you guys have definitely encouraged sort of writing your own species and sort of interfacing with it in those sorts of ways. So there is a bunch of really cool alien species that one can write as or write into existence. And yeah, their belief structures can be entirely unique or distinct. So yeah, big fan of those.
Yeah, I mean, I would assume it wouldn't be out of the question to say that most factions cultures have some sort of belief system relating to the beacon as a central tenet of why they find themselves here now. I mean, I'm not sure we know. It may be true, it may not be, but we don't know if any faction actually existed here prior to the beacon, right? Like it's an open question whether or not anyone can. I'm sure factions and cultures claim to have existed since the prior to the beacon activation, but there's no definitive proof of that. So that notion and the mythos and just the rumors and legends relating to the beacon itself probably do find themselves in most of the religions that show up.
Plus, also, as the resident guy who thinks about paladins too much, one of the things that we desperately want to avoid in a science fiction setting, unless we are a very specific subset of people, is we want to avoid giving conflict a way to escalate or sort of change in a disastrous way, I think. And Q-Chen's
I don't think anyone was going to say something.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, I am getting once again smacked. Have anyone, and there's a specific faction I'm thinking of course, at this point about this, has anyone written anything about Jimotheism in Beacon Space Truths?
I don't think Cash has done that, no.
Okay, yeah, we're gonna put that one on the sidebar. Also, I have lost my mouse as a fun side development.
Where did like the cursor or the item?
The cursor. What in a cool new development? I do not have a mouse, so this is good. But yeah, it is good to see you, Q-Chan. If you do get a chance, I do recommend, let me see if I can alt-tab over to my Twitch stream.
Ooh,
what do you
dangerous
need
proposition.
Stream?
Can you just do a shout out for Unrestricted Lorefare, because Lich's side is not only looking much better, I would argue, is much better right now. So definitely go check out the Unrestricted Lorefare channel, drop it a follow if you haven't done so already. You're going to be able to see the same thing with significantly less technical difficulty. So...
I wouldn't go that far. Less technical difficulties. So they still occur here. Somebody should help me remember. I need to set up shoutouts so that I can do this to Demised, because I don't think I have a bot set up to be able to do that.
There's a default one. I'll do it. Hang on.
Okay, cool. Well, in the meantime, then I'm going to move on to the next question so we can keep on schedule. It seems fitting that I should end up with this question. Magic. Does magic exist? And if so, what does it look like? Well, I have an answer here. Magic looks like the bleed. Truth answered. No more detail needs to be provided. I'm sure everyone knows what I mean without having to define anything else. There's some setting truths I could just copy and paste here, and we could just move on to question 8.
I'm sure no one has ever had an argument over the bleed before, not even one time.
Oh my goodness.
But in all seriousness, it is a slightly contentious topic, just given the interplay between how does magic exist and how does technology exist, and how do the two coexist, and how do the two power balance against one another, so that you don't just end up with wild technological claims of greatness countered by magic claims of greatness, and you end up with this sort of mess in the middle. So I'm not sure if anybody here was actually planning on acting as somebody that is affected by the bleed, so they're planning to play a character that's a lens. I know there are several within the Free Agents game. My character itself in Free Agents is a lens, and I'll often in the bar scenes the bartender has powers from the lens, from the bleed, and is a lens. But I think that's what it looks like in our setting, right? It is this notional thing, and some definitions about it is the bleed exists as sort of like if you've ever seen a density map or something like that, that the bleed exists in this this dense field that exists over the world, and some places it is stronger, some places it's weaker. Its power fluctuates and moves. If it's strong enough, it interacts with the physical world in strange and unique ways. But we have a magic system to lean into. We can definitely interface with characters that can perform these feats of what appear to be magic, but they're still grounded in reality. It's limited in the training it takes to become a lens to actually enact these powers in the real world, and the power it takes to actually perform massive feats of action. A massive magical act is something that we should also be able to do technologically, so there should be two different solutions to the same problem, and that's sort of one of the ground rules that has been established, right, is that neither one can sort of outshine the other. If there is a technical solution, there's also a magic solution, and what does that look like in play?
Yeah, and not to, again, like you were saying, we're gonna move on with absolutely no additional questions or follow-ups. But I do think it was really funny when we were like figuring this out and talking about it previously. Lich had brought up the very streamlined and easy process in the beginning, talking about the bleed, and I think, what was it that you said? It was something to the effect of, if you can do it with one, you can do it with the other, or something like that, right? And I just.
Yeah, for sure. That's definitely a thing we want to keep in mind. And there are, as we interact and come into this, because I'm sure it's something we'll want to push on and explore slightly, especially perhaps if we run into a new culture arriving to Beacon Space and they're interfacing with the first members of their species that are actually encountering the bleed. How does that look like, and how does the introduction of this into a society look like? Could be an interesting thing to explore, right? We could be wanting to see how that effect actually takes place, but for the most part, it doesn't seem like in discussions we're going to have a whole lot of characters that interface with that as a player character, which also makes working with the Starforge system a little bit nicer, because we don't have to end up making some custom asset cards for our characters, as that may be. I think I'll hand the next question over to Ilaria then, if we're ready to move on.
How very fitting, because I think I submitted one of the setting truths relating to this. So, how is information shared and saved? So, one of the big things in Beacon Space is that, unlike some sci-fi settings where faster than light communication is kind of everywhere and something everyone uses, in Beacon Space it exists, but it has limitations, namely that you can either have very fast transmission, but it's kind of unsecure, or you can have secure transmission that is not fast. And so that gives you certain limitations there. And you do have, with that, you have transmissions that are bounded by the speed of light for most users as a result of that. So I guess that's how it's shared. So a lot of stuff, you might have your news broadcast sent over the fast stuff where you don't care who picks it up because it's the news. But as a result of this, there's the example that comes to mind is, I believe, Ascent. They have their couriers that do a lot of messenger, mail delivery almost. And similarly, they also have, in the greater sector, the space truckers who transport not only goods, but information, quantities of information in order to bring these much more important secure data, like, I don't know, bank transactions. You don't want your bank transmissions going over, like, the public Wi-Fi.
Yeah, I mean, that summarizes things. I always quite think it feels like it pulls a lot from actually the Stars Without Numbers setting guide and how that produces information sharing, which is like as ships transit between different sectors and between different hexes, the ship itself just has a large computer that probably has storage that is quite often just unused by the crew, or in fact is probably even dedicated and set aside for this. We're going to be traveling, if we're traveling, you know, there are protocols that just handle loading up secure messages into storage partitions, and then when we get to the other sector, there are satellites and computer systems there that we transmit this data to as it continues to propagate in this very loosely connected internet way for that secure transmission. So I think this question nicely wraps up as we just have another result to pull from. We don't have to explore it too much further.
But
so
what if I want to hack into my local mail carrier and no, sorry.
Gotta use a fishing line and some string.
Medicine. How common is medical knowledge and technology?
And I assume this one would probably be in the context of, like, in the edges of the sector, similar to how we did for some of the earlier ones.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm making a pretty broad assumption, which is if we make it back to Tellus, or wherever we're calling our home base, we're essentially saying we've solved the problem, right? That most of the problems we're encountering is because we don't have immediate access to the established sector. We don't just have a space trucking union that can deliver the product we're missing within a matter of hours. We're actually in need of solving our problems ourselves, and when we finally make it back, unless there's some really big problem, it's all resolved there. Like that is, you know, the success and failure depends on when we get back, and we may get back in a nearly destroyed ship with a crew that's half sick, but like we made it back, we're going to be fine and be able to go on another adventure. It may just take you know, longer perhaps to recover before we get to go out on another discovery.
Makes sense.
Combine that too with the ideas of the bleed and technology being what it is. I definitely don't think it's a situation where, like, because like a part of what we want is we do want there to be travel between planets. So there's definitely a world where we engage in a like more comedy of errors way with this, right? Where it's like we set foot down on a planet and then we immediately get tetanus, and I guess we die because we don't know what medicine is. Like because we just stepped on a rusty nail, but that does seem counterproductive to a more sort of spanning narrative, which is what I think we wanted in the first place. So
yeah, this notion of probably what's available on the ship is comparable to, you know, maybe advanced current day Earth medical care, right? Like
exactly.
We can perform surgeries. Maybe you're even a little bit more advanced, right? Like there are medical conditions on Earth that can be solved much more easily, perhaps with just the technology difference that exists, but that, again, like everything else, you're limited by, well, how much medical supplies could we bring? Are we running out of important resources that we haven't been able to restock on or find to purchase? That becomes a pressing need, and that the way we sort of see this appear is, oh, this problem that we would normally be able to solve, we can't for some reason, and why is that? Rather than, oh, this problem can't be solved, as in we don't have the technology. It's much more, oh, this problem could be solved, but we're missing X, Y, and Z, making it possible. Yeah, but as is pointed out, it's dying of dysentery in the space edition, right? Like, if you were back in the cities, you could solve this problem, but you're on the middle of the Oregon Trail, and
no more space band-aids.
Yeah. So, I think that answers that question then. How about we do?
Actually,
Oh, does it? Go ahead.
sorry, real fast, just a consideration. Have we touched on nanotechnology in Beacon Space? We have, lightly, right?
I believe it
don't
is something
remember.
that is possible. Yes.
The only reason, the only thing that just made me think of is like, is there a world in which we're like, ah, yes, I just injected this syringe into me, and then I gained back 15 hit points, and now I'm hale and hearty. Or is it like, if it is modern day medical equivalent, right? Like, would something like that be considered, some sort of like legendary precursor technology or something like that, and then actual medicine is like, okay, well, you just got shot with a bullet, so chill out a little bit.
Yes. I mean, I think it's a mix of the two, right? Like, I would think, sort of getting back to medical cares from Tellus or whatever, that sort of nanotechnology probably certainly exists and is easily used, but we don't have an infinite supply on the ship, would be my response, right? That, we have to decide, is the person that accidentally got shot, is it worth using that high quality medical equipment, or do we need to, or seriously, do we need to take, oh, it's going to be fine, which is more conventional means, right? Like, there are bigger medical problems that we should save the limited pool of nanites we have for. If we only have 2 doses, can we use one now? Is that, like, this sort of gets into that morals question about the laws earlier, which is great. We'd like to do everything we can to save everyone, but resources are limited in a spaceship. Is this the appropriate place to expend them?
It's like the RimWorld argument. You're like, do they really? How injured are they?
No.
Yeah, but so I mean, my answer is it's a combination of the two. Is that certainly exists, but I don't think we have unlimited access to it, right? Like, does that make sense?
Sorry,
Christ?
That scream of pain was me imagining, because here's the problem. You remember how our RimWorld playthroughs went lit. You remember what happened to Seymour in those.
Look, okay, I think the PCs count as we would use those resources on them, right? The question...
Yeah.
So perhaps
go
from the
right
PC
to the top
question...
Of the queue.
Yeah, well, perhaps from the PC question, that is the answer, right? We have that technology, we can use it, but I think Starforge has a resources system, so it feels like if we are making that call towards this, like, really advanced level of medical technology, we're incurring a resource cost, right? Like, that is, we actually need to make the roll for it and do the mechanics for that level of just high technological medical field isn't just readily available and we can hand wave it. Like, no, that actually requires a roll for. Does that type of thing make sense?
No, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just Crossroad brings up, do we really need to save this person? And oh boy, am I hoping we have more than 3 crewmates if that's our thought process.
Most ships within Beacon Space, as an established fiction from free agents, have required more than 3 people to operate, so I assumed we would have a relatively reasonable sized ship.
Oh, good. That means we can have a space betrayal episode. Excellent.
No.
It's a possibility. Well, on that thought, before we move into our next question of artificial intelligence, how about we take a quick break? We've been at this for just about an hour now. I could certainly use some water, and probably not the best thing to have on stream, but I know I have some pretzels, and I really want a small snack right now. So I'm going to go grab myself some pretzels and make sure my water bottle is refilled. All of you watching the stream, hopefully on both channels, we'll hope it works for Demised and there are no tech problems. We put together an ad reel. You may have seen these ads if you've watched the lore streams that I've done with my co-host Lupus Kalbrick for those. I've put together an ultimate reel. So if you're a Twitch subscriber on both of our channels, you'll get to see all of those ads. If not, you'll catch whichever ones make their way through the real world Twitch ads as we take our break here, and we'll see you back here in just about 5 minutes.
Fingers crossed. See you soon.
Bye.
This week on Kangaroo Court, did slippery celebrity defendant baby TV anchor Elle Calvert conspire to poison the prosecution? Watch now on Kangaroo Court, where good justice is never blind. Fair and balanced, only on BBTV5. Brought to you by the New Eden Gene Bank. Be a better you.
Silent Night Cargo Concerns. We invite travelers to the sector of the brilliant world of Telos. Be it for business or pleasure, Silent Night provides swift and secure transit for visitors of the center system. Cutting through the red tape, our dedicated teams will make sure your passes and permits are squared away so that you don't have to mess with the hassle of bureaucracy in your travel plans. Our services go beyond simply for your person. As our name implies, we handle a wide range of cargo concerns, be it a porter service that can get your holiday bags straight to your hotel room, to providing storage facilities, or even negotiating bulk goods through local customs. We've got you covered. Through our affiliates in Falufo Kaliki, we offer half-hourly shuttle services from the bountiful TTGI station to the planet's many floating cities. Safe and reliable service is vital to the health of our clients, and that is why the security travelers and their cargo is our top priority in the void space of the center system. Call now to ask about our Guardian Protection Package.
Become healthier. Become stronger. Become smarter. Become better. At New Eden Gene Bank, we offer plans and opportunities for people like you who want to break their limits and rise to new heights. Visit your local branch today for a consultation. New Eden Gene Bank. Be a better you. Proud sponsors of BBTV.
Across the sector, there are so many worlds, each with their own story. But during the hustle and bustle of daily life, there's rarely enough time to get things done as it is, let alone dream of far-off vistas. That's why we've done the hard work for you. As part of the Aguamala Syndicate's project and Ziti, a plethora of new travel destinations have been identified for even the most novice traveler. Visit one of Fortuna's 5 cities for a day of shopping in the bazaar, or travel Gom's icy peaks to see its breathtaking views. A fan of forests? El Arpon offers hiking trails through unique biomes that will fascinate even the most experienced travelers. Quetzalcoatl's ruins are sure to be a hit with those looking for a fantastic photography experience, and for those more inclined for a trip to the high life, Calypso's resorts provide an ideal luxury getaway. Whatever your interests, we're sure that we can help you plan your perfect vacation. Brought to you by the Aguamalan Board of Tourism.
Are you looking for that perfect island getaway? The destination vacation of your dreams? Then Telos is the place for you. Visit the floating cities of Telos, modern marvels of nature and engineering from the great minds of Cardicook and Helicitis, built on the backs of gentle jellyfish giants. Experience the wonders of life like never before as the tropical paradise comes alive to serve you. A city of living green traveling over blue horizons where you don't become one with nature, but nature becomes one with you. From riding on the backs of whales and dragonflies to lounging on gentle lily pads and inside of fragrant flowers, or a million other things in between, there is always something for you on Telos. Telos, a world made for you.
Hello and welcome back to Beacon Space ReDiscovery. I'm still your host, Xavier, along with my fabulous co-GMs. You get the title for the game of ReDiscovery, Demeist and Delaria. Welcome on back. We hope you enjoyed your break, and for those of you who were able to enjoy the wonderfulness of the IC ads, many of these have been created in collaboration with the factions that actually participate in the Faction Turn game. So we had the New Eden Gene Bank, we had the Alchemalan Board of Tourism, and several other different organizations and entities that offer different products and services. And they are all certainly sponsors of Beacon Space tonight, which endeavors to always provide the most accurate news coverage, no matter what, including, advice regarding biomedical implants. If you need one, you should check out the New Eden Gene Bank today.
I'm not saying that I, as a member of the Agomala Syndicate, am telling you not to go there, but it's weird. Run! Flee for the hills! There's something about New Eden Gene Bank! Don't let them silence you!
That was weird.
Yeah, with that though, welcome back. Hopefully everyone got a chance to grab some water or a snack during the quick break, as we'll get to jump back in with the next truth, which it only feels fitting if we pitch this truth over to Ilaria to get started the discussion.
So, as anyone who has done roleplay with me in terms of like tabletop or text RP may be aware, I really like robots a lot.
What? I'm so shocked. I'm shocked
I'm
so much
shocked
I can't
as
even
well.
speak.
To the point where my character in Free Agents actually is an artificial intelligence, so that may somewhat answer this question. So artificial intelligence, from what I recall in Beacon Space, they definitely exist. Maybe they're not really supposed to exist. Maybe people would like that not to be the case, mostly because you're not legally really supposed to make them, but they happen somehow. Nobody knows. Sometimes it's on purpose, sometimes it's not. There's a number of specifics relating to like sector truths that I don't know that we need to necessarily go into here, other than like the non-human robots one. Like, robots are not humanoid in form, so a lot of AIs are of course affected by this. And so yeah, like, they do exist. They're not humanoid, but the forms they do take are very weird sometimes, as has been mentioned
Weird.
as has been mentioned in the other chat. Yes, they're not technically illegal, and some forms of them are less illegal than others. I think it's like the ones based on like human intelligences are more allowed than the kind of like more traditional sci-fi, perhaps, AI, where it's like pure computer logic.
Yeah, so the truth there is that, especially on the frontiers, true AI without much restrictions are generally allowed, but that even on Telestation, there are probably hundreds, if not thousands, of AIs or VIs between the two that are intended to be close to the level of human performance in something. And even then, they're probably, if you're used to interacting with AI technologies that are being created today, those probably are very ubiquitous, like, speech recognition, language understanding for question answering. There's a scene going on right now, actually, where I assumed, as GMing this exploration and mini Free Agents mission within a text-based play-by-post, with the idea that if you're interacting with a receptionist at a gate that's automated, that it's a VI intelligence that's capable and competent of interacting, but you may end up with some weird, repetitive questions or answers that it gives, that it doesn't always understand every means of communication. But that's certainly not the case for AIs. They themselves are able to be essentially limitless, especially on the frontier. I mean, isn't a character of yours Zenith an AI collection?
Yeah, so my free agents character, Proxy, is part of a larger collective of drones called Zenith, and they're on their own, they kind of are average intelligence. Together, they can do a lot of things. I have not yet done a scene with more than 4 or 5 of them, and some of those even get excessive.
Hard for you to remember how to RP all of them individually?
I had one scene, I think, that had 5 of them, and it was fun to write, but it kind of becomes hard to read.
That's fair. Any thoughts on this topic, Demeist?
I mean, yeah, because we spent so much time in science fiction, right? Like, there's a lot of things that we can just sort of take for granted and sort of shorthand in some ways, like the idea of virtual intelligence, like the idea of, what it means to do the whole neural network stuff, right? Because, like, obviously in the real world, there is a certain amount of limitations that we're aware of, or, inserting things into, like, brains in a jar sort of situation. So I think as and when it arises, we'll be maybe more equipped to deal with it, because, like, that's one of the things that I think is really brilliant about Zenith, or, like, when Ilaria goes into these, like, artificial intelligence situations at all, is the characters are very... There is a reliance on how more is better, I guess, is a better way, and I think that's the thing, right? Is, like, one virtual intelligence, maybe childlike in its capabilities. 100 virtual intelligences, okay, well, now we're getting closer to a true AI and the repercussions therein sort of situation. So yeah.
Well, I think we can move on if you want to take us into the question about war, Demeist.
Oh, what is it good for? So yeah, we'll go into how common is warfare / large-scale combat, and who participates in it. And so what I want to do for Rediscovery is not going to line up with the actual faction game. Because I think resources are fairly scarce on the frontier. I think the idea of the beacon is that we're all going towards the beacon, and for better or worse on that one. But the main faction turns themselves have actually been fairly peaceful, which is not a good thing or a bad thing in terms of. Yeah, I
depends who you ask. Being the faction, probably. Are you the faction that's taken the attack action or the seize action the most? There were statistics about this out recently.
No,
I think I'm sitting with 2 people trying to claim the faction turn's been very peaceful, when you may be partially responsible for the most non-peaceful actions taken.
We've certainly lost and destroyed the most strike fleets. Collectively.
Listen, really, when you think about it, we're incentivizing the shipbuilding industry.
Ooh, that's what you're doing. Okay.
No, but all nonsense aside, I do think large-scale conflicts are probably more often occurring than a formalized war, right? Like, I think war sort of implies a large enough, like, regulating structure that, like, there is a declaration of war issued, and I don't think the frontier is like that. I think this flotilla of ships, or this one satellite, or something like that. Anya, how dare you cast aspersions in this? This is Rediscovery. It's completely unrelated. No, but yeah, I think I think large-scale conflicts are sort of part and parcel. I just don't think it is. I think it is very sort of scrappy, very sort of individual. Another way that we could take it, if we're drawing inspiration from sci-fi, is we could definitely think of it sort of like a Firefly situation, where the victor of war, as it were, is people are going towards Beacon Space. The Beacon has won. There are no localized communities outside of Beacon Space, but people aren't happy about the fact that they're going to the Beacon. It's just the best option there is, I think.
Certainly an interesting way of looking at things, yeah.
I mean, a part of my inspiration for this is taking it from, when people with the Industrial Revolution and that sort of stuff, as aggregate people go from the fringes in towards more urbanized metropolitan areas, right? There are still casualties. Overall, it's an improvement in the standard of living, but some people would prefer to still be at their old residencies, as it were. So
I do think that something worth noting is that people traveling to the Beacon this might not always be the case, but they probably don't know that there's a nice place to be there. So it may be that they, in time when we're encountering them, very much feel that way, that they're going away from something they've loved to something that is infinitely worse, and just not be aware that there is anything there at all.
Oh my god, I didn't even consider that angle. Like, what if the Beacon is bad? Like, if these outlying peoples are like hearing about the Beacon, seeing the Beacon, like, what if there is some other civilization out there that's like, this Beacon is a horrible siren song. We must go there and destroy it. Yeah.
Absolutely. Cool. Well, I think that covers that, it would be reasonable for our characters to expect to end up in a fight, whether or not they're well prepared or trained for it or not at some point in our exploration, or at least encounter one, as it may be. Well, I went ahead and cheated an answer into the next question. I hope the two of you all don't mind, having to do with life forms, which was how common are non-human life forms? I've chosen the answer of universal, because this is a definitive trait at Beacon Space.
Yeah, and it is a good thing to note, because this is somewhere where we significantly deviate from Starforge's, stated setting.
Yeah.
There are tons of cute axolotl creatures out there that we love. And they are bipedal, so get over it. No, sorry.
Yep. Yeah, so there are all kinds of different creatures that exist that are of at least sentient life, to the extent that they are respected as much, and so it's certainly something we'll encounter, I'm sure, within our game, and something we'll want to make sure to draw attention to. It would perhaps be interesting to run into, a culture of a species that already exists, but being able to, define it in a different angle or a different way than the description in Beacon Space, given that these could be new arrivals from an entirely different subculture that has been, thousands of years separated from its original arrivals, or perhaps just happens to look similar to another species and would be recognized as such, but they don't actually have any knowledge of the pre-existing individuals in Beacon Space. Well, I don't know who to hand this question off to, but would one of the two of you like to take the question on precursors?
So, what sort of civilizations came before the current sector's inhabitants? I seem to recall that the answer is we don't really know. Because as you mentioned before, the people of Beacon Space have kind of come in waves. But as far as the current generation of inhabitants is aware, there kind of just always have been people here who came to the beacon. There are ruins that suggest that there were civilizations here before, but as far as I recall, in character, we're not like aware of any existing remnants of these like peoples.
Yeah, if we want to steal from Mr. Sean Tompkin himself, right, in his section for precursors, we have 3 options here that are sort of more generalized, and we could just say this is true for this section of the frontier, but I often find precursors kind of lackluster, for lack of a better phrase.
Care to expand on that a little bit more?
Yeah, sure. Now, and again, this is me coming at it with my own personal bias, so take it with a small mountain of salt. But honestly, for me, precursors feel a lot like sort of the air quotation marks, classical civilizations that came before the medieval ages or the dark ages, right? It's like the people before the fall. And while I do like the glitch and I do like the idea that there was definitely a civilization beforehand, I think it'd be even more interesting, to say that there weren't precursors in this space specifically, or if there were precursors, it wasn't that they were some sort of technological supergiant or otherwise, but rather just people of a similar level who were just traveling through. Because I think if there was something worth finding, some precursor artifacts worth obtaining, I personally feel like that'd be at the beacon. But this is where the wonder of Ironsworn comes in. This is a collaborative writing experience for us. So if you guys have a difference of opinion or anything like that, hit me up with it.
It's an interesting different definition of the word precursor. I've summarized that in for us, precursors are also those who we encounter arriving to Beacon Space who've never been there before. They are also definitionally precursors, right? They came before Beacon Space. Whether or not it's true that they came before the beginning of Beacon Space isn't relevant, right? They were there before, they had something that existed of themselves before they ended up at the area we now call Beacon Space.
Yeah, and I am sneaking a peek over in your chat, Xavier, and I am seeing what Karagor said, like with regards to the makers of the gates. I think that's a fine question, right? Of like, we could definitely stumble across some sort of terminal somewhere where they're like, and we were the ones who made these things in the first place. But then instead of it being a question of like, oh, so we found the precursors, it's like, how reliable are these narrators? You know what I mean? Like, some random guy on a comm pad is no more or less trustworthy than anybody else, in my opinion. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, Oh, go ahead.
You can go.
I was going to say, there is... So stretching upon something that's defined in a document I'm working on for fleshing out what space truckers is, I've actually... One of the medium power space trucker unions that I've named is called the Darien Agricultural Consortium, and this has actually come up. There's been references and allusions to it within Free Agents to a limited extent, but the actual like 2 or 3 sentence pitch for this space trucker union says that thousands of years ago this organization may have been a significant influence onto the sector. Due to whatever reason, and I list a few events that happen in the timeline, they have only been reduced to a handful of far-flung colony worlds and core world farming enterprises. So this idea of a precursor is also, is this space trucker union that's really about, just providing food. Are they a precursor? Were they here before? Well, they're still here now. Like, we know quite a lot about them, but like, there's stuff they've probably forgotten about their own civilization or their own organization over time. And does that help, meld and change what this word of precursor actually means as compared to what we may classically think of in sci-fi.
Yeah, and I think that that is something that I think partially comes from assumptions of traditional sci-fi, where precursors are often implied to be these vast, sprawling, sector-wide civilizations with mega science, as you hinted at before, Demise. Whereas more like Earth traditionally, it's just kind of like these are the groups who were here before. Some of them were ordinary, boring groups, like the trash collectors or the warehouse stocking brigade. They were really big and they did have power, but no one cares about them now.
How dare you? I and my warehouse stacking, you know what I mean. The union that I represent in this situation, definitely.
Yeah.
No, but bits aside for sure.
Yeah, it could also even just be like technologies and stuff that have kind of gone by the wayside. Like nowadays, with cell phones being a thing, telegraphs, for example, not really a thing anymore. They were a very big thing 70 years ago.
Yep.
Yeah, and exactly that of like, sorry, you go, Xavier?
No, I was just saying yes.
Like, I definitely think there's things that we could find and repurpose for resources, but yeah, like, sorry, just for my money, for what it's worth, when you introduce precursors who are super technologically advanced, it's maybe, and to be clear, there might come a day where we rely on this, so future Demise, don't look back too angrily at me at this moment. But it's normally a way of like writing yourself out of a difficult situation, right? Is like, oh god, he's stranded on a planet without oxygen, and he's also filled with bullet holes, and there are 16 alien leopards coming down on him. How do I get him out of this situation? And you're like, he pops a button on his vest and his precursor force field comes out, right? Like, barring a situation like that for us, which I'm, you know, if you put Seymour in the situation, I will rely on my cool precursor vest. But, you know, I generally prefer it more as a alternate than a superior iteration. But yeah, I think we've beaten the dead horse on precursors at this point.
Cool. Then I think we get to move on to the horrors of rediscovery. How real are the strange creatures or forces that are mentioned in stories and legends? The answers are at least some of them have to exist, because there's a white whale being raced after right now.
I hate this whale so much.
I mean, we finally got a little bit over on it this last faction turn, so we'll see. It might still get away.
Yeah, the amount of resources poured into this gosh darn this thing.
I'm glad to know the faction quest system is working as intended. But in rediscovery focus, I think there's a mix, right? Like, some of these things are legends that have become exaggerated past what they actually are, and then, you know, some of these things are real.
Yeah, and I definitely think the existence of the bleed contributes to some things, because the bleed, if you don't know what's going on with the bleed, it can do a lot of damage, and that has things that can be very dangerous, can tend to have stories written about them about why maybe you should be careful. Similarly for science, for that matter.
For sure. Cool. Well, it's taken us about 90 minutes. We took a break in there, but about that long, which puts us, I think, about on track for getting through these truths. So now that we've got this filled out, I believe, Ilaria, we designated you as the person to help walk us through the setup here.
No.
What's next? Are we moving on to character creation?
Oh yes, you mean with that? I thought I was scrolling frantically through the rule book. Look at my other list.
No, just the flow of the things we had to get through.
Yes. Uh, Character creation would be next because uh, both that's what naturally comes next, and it's also next in the rule book.
Sweet, that's what I thought was next, but you had
Yeah.
politely put that together for us, so I thought I would double check.
Yep, it's in there.
All right, well, let's try to then see if I cannot have any technical difficulties as I move over to the Roll20 window. Hey, look at that. The scene transition was smooth. How about the mice? Did you have a scene for this setup that you're transitioning over to, or?
Well, it again rolled back, but during the break I slapped something together as fast as I could, so, it is something.
Oh, good enough. Well, yeah, welcome. If you've not played with Roll20 before, that would somewhat surprise me, but Roll20 is just an online tabletop system. There is a nicely implemented community sheet for Ironsworn and including the Starforged variant, so we'll be using this as our role-playing dice rolling game. On the stream back and forth, you'll also see that, at least from my perspective, I will flip back and forth between a tracking document, especially since Starforged is such a narratively driven game, that more of the game may actually be in taking down notes about what we've discovered and writing out the story that we're encountering, rather than building some elaborate map into the Roll20 interface. It's mostly being used for character creations, for the character sheets, our ship, and for dice rolls, because that's an all-important thing when playing a role-playing game. With that said, though, I've never actually created an Ironsworn character or a Starforged character. I've read through the rules, and I have some thoughts on my character background, but perhaps this would be a point for you to lead us through some character creation guidelines?
Yes, I'm just kind of quickly going to the relevant section. Okay. So, we're already, the very first step in here is kind of like thinking of the idea of your character. And we're going to change part of it right from the beginning, because the very first thing in here is that you are a human, and you do not have to be a human. We've already discussed this.
Yes, we have established that as a fact, so we can assume you do not need to be human.
So, sort of the two main things that you determine through character creation is you have these 5 stats: edge, heart, iron, shadow, and wits, and you use these basically as modifiers to your dice rolls. So you'll get a score for each of those, and you'll also get 3 assets. 2 of them will be path assets, and those basically will kind of give you an idea of the skills you've gotten from your background. And then you'll have 1 additional asset that can either be another path or some part of the ship that you are either associated with, like running, or a companion that you have, and that will further flesh out your character. So those are kind of the 2 main mechanical things you get from character creation. As we said before, it's quite a narrative-driven game, so there aren't a lot of complex mechanics as other systems might have, like Smash That Number, Cypher system, which is used for free agents. This is a little bit lighter than that.
Well, it looks like we get started with assets first.
Yes. So the first one is you choose 2 paths. And so the general thing for playing with multiple people is that when you pick paths, you kind of go around in a circle, each person picking one, and it suggests that you don't have any repeats between people to kind of spread out what your characters are capable of doing.
Yeah, that makes sense. Those are much smaller than I would hope they would be in the deal option. So I did, so that I could drag these out and show them on stream, I did put together the asset cards in Roll 20. So how about that way people can drag them out, and we can hopefully make them big enough that they can be read as we fight over zooming in there. So how about we do that? How about we go around and pick things out? And I nominate Ilaria to go first.
Alaria doesn't know how to use the card draw mechanic. How do I actually get the... Yeah.
Yeah, so you can... So the first thing is you can just hover over where the cards are in the corner. Hopefully they're showing for you. If you hover over them, there's an options for deal, choose, removed, recall, shuffle, hide. Go ahead and click choose, and that pops up.
That was what I was missing. Those were buttons.
Yeah, if you pop up choose, you actually get you could if you have my stream pulled up, you could see it at the bottom, or I guess that way it just gives you a view of all of the cards that exist. So this is all of the asset cards, or at least it should be. So it includes like the starship that we've pulled out here, and the cards we should have set aside, but that does give us everything to look at to be able to pull from.
Okay. So I was actually hoping to not go first because I have a number to pick from that I had thought were interesting, but I hadn't hard settled on any of them yet.
Well, we can pass it along to Demise to go first then.
Yeah.
Unfortunately so, and I say unfortunately because I am once again bringing out Shaboy Seymour Valentine, because there is no such thing as anything new under the sun, and you literally can never make me not play as that boy. So
We love Seymour Valentine. He's great.
He is my Blorbo. If I could have a Blorbo, by not drawing them, but instead by just constantly playing the same character over and over again. Trying to find... I mean, the card system is brilliant in terms of us being able to bring it out. I am gonna zoom in here.
Yeah, they do display really small on the list for some reason.
Yeah, it's okay. It's not perhaps designed for what I'm using it as, but it's.
They are alphabetical if that helps.
They're probably alphabetical by file name, which I have no idea if that's in the correct. I may not have named them all correctly, but.
Oh, I mean they look for the most part correct.
Okay, well that's a good thing. So, do you have some thoughts then on your
Yes. He said frantically. So the thing with Seymour being Seymour is he is going to, as I try and brute force this into being legible, sorry for everybody's eyeballs.
You'll have to drag a card out, and then we can zoom below the card out. That's the best way to do it.
Yeah.
You just have to find the card you want.
Yeah, which card do you want? We can bring it out.
The core of his entire thing is that he is a rootin' tootin' cowboy. So number one is going to be Gunslinger, of course. It is the only path that makes sense for our sweet, beautiful boy. Is he good at being a gunslinger? Absolutely not. But he's gonna keep trying. That's his whole deal. So with the gunslinger path, the thing is that when I choose this at the start, I only get the already marked in bubble, and then as we go through the game, I can choose to upgrade down this asset card. And so it's when you wield a pistol, when you enter the fray, and it being underlined is just indicative of it being a possible move you can make in the game. By facing off against your foe, plus heart, or by preparing to act without tipping them off, plus shadow. So, right, that's sort of representative of the two sides of a gunslinger, right? The desperado versus the plucky sheriff. Add +1 to your roll to make the move. and take +1 momentum on a hit. And we'll talk about what momentum looks like in dice rolls. On a strong hit with a map, you may immediately take a shot without making a move, and then mark progress twice. So basically, if I'm using a pistol in a fight, and it goes well, it goes really well, which is a nice way of snowballing, and it's just, again, a little bit of flavor for the kinds of things that Seymour Valentine does. So yeah.
Cool.
So this one is for me.
It is indeed. Now, do you want to go next, or should I take over with a card choice?
Do you have an idea of what card you were interested in, or no?
I have a few, but
I think we're in a similar situation.
yeah, I think I have one that we're picking. These are all path cards to be the first ones, correct?
Yes,
And we're gonna pick 2 of those.
correct. Which you can pick your path as your third one, but you don't have to.
Yeah. So I was looking at. I think my character I'm going to make is going to be someone who's a little strange to be out on the frontier. But I think I'm looking at somebody who's a journalist. So I was thinking of taking the Lore Hunter card. So that would mean that I would have the, I think these are, abilities? When you swear an iron vow, formidable or greater, to recover valuable knowledge or an extraordinary relic, re-roll any dice. When you reach a milestone in the pursuit of that quest, take +2 momentum. When you fulfill your vow and score a hit, you also mark 2 ticks on your Discovery's legacy track.
Heck yeah. Some sort of book nerd out here, huh?
Yep, that would be me. So, I think that means, unfortunately for you, and
No, it's
friend,
fine. It's fine.
we are around to your turn.
That's alright. So, the character I'm thinking of playing is, unsurprisingly, another of the many drones of Zenith. Which, I will say, I was going to not, and then Device was like, Seymour is back, and I was like, well, Seymour knows proxy, and so it is not inconceivable another of Zenith could be around.
This is fair.
Also, let's be real. If I don't do the one trick, who knows how the world will go? So.
it might fall right off of its axis.
Exactly.
But yeah, so I think the card I'm going to go with is Scavenger, because I like the idea of a drone that's a little bit more, like, robust, I suppose, than a lot of the ones I've made, which tend to be quite, like, delicate flying ones. That are perhaps more speed over strength.
This is fair.
Thank you. The corner was very small.
Yeah, not a problem. So, what's the ability you get from this?
So, when you gather information or resupply by scavenging a wreck, ruin, or abandoned site, add +1 and take +1 momentum on a hit. On a strong hit with a match, you also find something of unique value, significance, or function. Envision the nature of the discovery, take +2 momentum, and mark 2 ticks on your Discovery's legacy track. So basically, this gives you bonuses to finding things, both information and supplies, in like ruins, abandoned structures, that sort of thing. And it also gives you the potential to find valuable in the context that they're valuable to your situation, usually items that others maybe would overlook. Which I think will be quite helpful out in the nowhere lands where resources are scarce and looking for things is the goal.
Nice. So, does that push us around to
It does.
Demeist again?
It does. And so the problem is that if we were doing a fantasy setting, I probably would have done Blade Master Devotant, and that's because I am, of course, again, some sort of cool paladin. But unfortunately, that doesn't work for this, neither for Seymour nor for, again, I'm not a member of the Starlit Court. Smile. But I do think, not that they have a monopoly on cool sword boys, but I do think the other thing that is sort of characteristic about Seymour is that he is very lucky. And I don't know how this feels for either of you guys in a certain way, right? Like this is a I don't even know how to describe it. A boring methodology to it. When I look at Path Faded, to me that reads as the most lucky of the paths. Now there are other assets, and so I'm okay with people saying like I don't want to necessarily play with this particular asset, but the Path Faded, and then are you working on that, Rich?
Yeah, I can pull it out.
Perfect, thank you.
I think perhaps the only concern that I would have with the Faded Path is that if you ever complete your goal, you kind of... The final sacrifice is not a phrase that bodes well, is all I'm saying.
Well, so this is the thing that I think about Seymour, and again, we can definitely workshop this a little bit. I don't know what his final goal is, and I'll be honest, his backstory has always been a little bit of a blur for me. For Beacon Space, it's a little bit more streamlined. I've got a little bit more of an idea behind it. But one of the things that you can do is you can choose that your background vow is something insane, like my character, for normal Ironsworn, it could be like, my character will kill God, right? And so the problem is that path has probably hundreds of progress markers to hit. But when you do, you will then immediately ascend to retirement because your character cannot do anything else. If we do want to play around with something else, I'm totally down for it. One of the things with Seymour is that he it's always been sort of a thought process that maybe he's from an alternate dimension, right? Like maybe there's some sort of parallel universe nonsense going on. And so maybe Seymour Valentine's ultimate goal is to get back to whatever that original universe is. We can also, again, there's so many different ways that we can mess around with it. That's just what I want for him being lucky, but again, he's also supposed to be a bit of a frontiers boy. He's sort of de facto became the pilot for a couple of ships in Free Agent, but that had more to do with the fact that nobody else could pilot and Seymour could reroll once. So
I mean, it is ultimately up to you. I have no problem with you choosing the asset if you want to go in that direction with your character. I just wanted to express my opinion that, at least personally, I would not choose that one because my little drones probably don't have a grand destiny, but also...
Well, that's one of the things that I think is really cool about the Ironsworn system is, generally speaking, getting your character to the end of their track will either result in death to try and get there or death at getting there. But it just means that your character is retired, right? So like in this instance,
fair.
Seymour Valentine's retirement. Well, okay, it does say final sacrifice that brings your story to
that
an end.
specific wording was the one that got me.
I think as long as Lich and, as long as Xavier and by extension Calbrecht are okay with it, I think Seymour Valentine's final end is he just gets shunted back to core space and goes back to being a free agent instead of a
He
discoverer,
gets
right?
fired.
Basically. But
Yeah, I don't think your character
it's-
needs to die as the end of Fated.
Yeah.
You're retired from. You won't be going out and going on a discovery run again, right?
Exactly. If y'all are okay with that.
That is
one
cool with
is
me.
For me.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Ooh. Well, that pushes it around to me, which means I have a question, which is,
Sure.
who owns the ship?
It's a good question. It's a very
Oh,
important
boy.
question. I don't think it's me. It'd be a little
It's-
weird if it was me.
Probably not Seymour, right? So I think there's only one lad left in this equation.
There is, I guess, I believe, is also only one player character, right? We could make
That's true. It could
we may
belong
not
to
own
somebody
the ship.
else.
So I had two potential ideas, and they relate to my next path. So I was either looking at taking leader as the sort of obvious, if my character was the one to have the ship, then this background path would make sense. Perhaps I'm the one who's brought the group together or acquired the rest of the crew of totally not red shirts that are wearing purple shirts this time. Or I was looking at taking Trader as the other background, and having a link between being both a journalist but having a background from some trade union, and perhaps that's where the initial funding for the ship came from. Like, either way, owning the ship seems fine. I was wondering if people had, any thoughts or input there.
Ooh. I mean, first thing I'm thinking about is that is exceptionally useful on the frontier, right? Of like having somebody who does have some sort of background in trading. And that could also, in some ways, depending on how you want your character to go, that could describe why they're out here, maybe working off a debt or something. Is that, maybe it was a trade deal gone bad or something. So I'm super in favor of that. Yeah.
Any thoughts, Hilaria?
I don't super have a preference between the two. I do see Fluffbot's comment of trying to urge me to be in charge of the ship, which I don't think. I don't know how likely it is that Little Drone Friend would own the ship. Help run it, yes. Own it, I'm less sure.
Well, I think I'm gonna go with Trader then, at least for this pick, and
Yeah.
we'll still, for now, operate under the assumption that I'll be the reason we have this ship. So that, I guess, gives me the ability of when I sojourn or compel, I can roll plus supply, and if I do, we apparently sacrifice some resources. And has a few other things as well
Yeah,
to unlock in the near future.
indeed. So it's come back round to me again. So I'm kind of between two at this point. So kind of what I'm thinking is that, like, my character probably has, like, a kind of, against the last point, a role in the ship where they are helping to keep it maintained, at least at some level. So, as a part of that, who are we having fly the ship? Is it one of us? Or is it an NPC? Because I was considering Navigator as one of the cards that I would take, but I'm not 100% on it.
I am happy either way. I'm happy to say we are the ones owning and navigating the ship, or we just have a skilled NPC capable of running and doing the actual navigation.
Yeah, my gut feeling was that our third asset was going to be ship related. But that definitely doesn't have to be the case, right? Like it can definitely be a situation where instead of us engaging in it directly, right? Like we could absolutely, even if we felt so bold, roll up side characters explicitly for the purpose of piloting. So I'm game for either way as well. Just Seymour has had some bad runs as pilot that accidentally turned good, so you know.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like if you picked Navigator now, that makes a good connection between at least our two characters and how did you end up onto this ship? You know, answering that sort of question.
So the other card I was looking at is, where did it go? Hiding, is Gearhead, which is more about like repairing things, which could be a similar connection, just a slightly different role. I'm just
Absolutely.
a little undecided between the two, and so wanted some feedback.
Okay, because it's Iron Sword, we can absolutely sort of hand wavium a ship probably won't come by this way to, oh look, a ship just so happened to come by this way. So if we were super desperate and something isolated us from a ship, in my personal opinion, Gearhead is more useful, but that doesn't have to be the case, right?
Yeah.
So.
I mean, we could also have like pick up Navigator later on from XP or whatever.
Exactly.
I do think Gearhead probably fits slightly better for the character as opposed to I'm picking this because it's mechanically useful.
And perhaps that's a better argument to take Gearhead than Ironsworn tends to be a system, from my understanding, which should be more narrative rather than, oh look, we need a navigator.
Yes.
You know, unlike I wouldn't want to be playing a Stars Without Numbers game where we're expecting to navigate and be like, oh, nobody took the pilot skill at all? Oh. Huh. Well, we may just die as we all fail to navigate a spaceship since none of us know how to do this.
It'll be fine.
Yeah.
And that's why I took the support vehicle exosuit. You guys, good luck. I'm leaving on my own separate adventure. No, I'm kidding.
Do you know how to pilot it?
Well, listen.
Apparently not.
But yeah, I think I forget how this works. Does one of us have to? Let's do this in order. Sorry.
Well, that selects 2 paths for each of us, so I think the next question has to do with backstory creation.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, where is it? I've lost my page. There it is.
Yeah. So, I think this to me seems like something we should be approaching as sort of the like relationship question that some other narrative-driven games pose, which is like, and how did we end up here together? So I'm at least going to switch myself back over to our to the Google Doc and head on over into the story so far and find myself session 0 and start with character relationships as a heading.
Which, do we want to take a quick break before we go into this? Just because it's been almost 2 hours now.
It is about that time.
Much.
Yeah.
We could do that. How about we take another quick break, and then we'll wrap up the last hour with finishing up, finding out more about our characters, and figuring out what trouble they find themselves in.
Mm-hmm.
Which, can I say, already pretty excited. You know, it is just session 0, as we had said, but I'm a big fan.
Yeah, well, we will see you back here in just a few more minutes. Hopefully you'll get a chance to see a different ad than last time, but that'll only have to be from the real-world Twitch ads and not the in-character ones. See everyone in just a couple minutes.
This week on Kangaroo Court, did slippery celebrity defendant BBTV anchor Elle Calvert conspire to poison the prosecution? Watch now on Kangaroo Court, where good justice is never blind. Fair and balanced, only on BBTV5. Brought to you by the New Eden Gene Bank. Be a better you.
Silent Night Cargo Concerns. We invite travelers to the sector of the brilliant world of Telos. Be it for business or pleasure, Silent Night provides swift and secure transit for visitors of the Center system. Cutting through the red tape, our dedicated teams will make sure your passes and permits are squared away so that you don't have to mess with the hassle of bureaucracy in your travel plans. Our services go beyond simply for your person. As our name implies, we handle a wide range of cargo concerns, be it a porter service that can get your holiday bags straight to your hotel room, to providing storage facilities, or even negotiating bulk goods through local customs. We've got you covered. Through our affiliates in Falufo Kaliki, we offer half-hourly shuttle services from the bountiful TTGI station to the planet's many floating cities. Safe and reliable service is vital to the health of our clients, and that is why the security travelers and their cargo is our top priority in the void space of the Center system. Call now to ask about our Guardian Protection Package.
Become healthier. Become stronger. Become smarter. Become better. At New Eden Gene Bank, we offer plans and opportunities for people like you who want to break their limits and rise to new heights. Visit your local branch today for a consultation. New Eden Gene Bank. Be a better you. Proud sponsors of BBTV.
Across the sector, there are so many worlds, each with their own story. But during the hustle and bustle of daily life, there's rarely enough time to get things done as it is, let alone dream of far-off vistas. That's why we've done the hard work for you. As part of the Aguamala Syndicate's project and Ziti, a plethora of new travel destinations have been identified for even the most novice traveler. Visit one of Fortuna's 5 cities for a day of shopping in the bazaar, or travel Gom's icy peaks to see its breathtaking views. A fan of forests? El Arpon offers hiking trails through unique biomes that will fascinate even the most experienced travelers. Quetzalcoatl's ruins are sure to be a hit with those looking for a fantastic photography experience, and for those more inclined for a trip to the high life, Calypso's resorts provide an ideal luxury getaway. Whatever your interests, we're sure that we can help you plan your perfect vacation. Brought to you by the Aguamalan Board of Tourism.
Are you looking for that perfect island getaway? The destination vacation of your dreams? Then Telos is the place for you. Visit the floating cities of Telos, modern marvels of nature and engineering from the great minds of Kartakuk and Helicitis, built on the backs of gentle jellyfish giants. Experience the wonders of life like never before as the tropical paradise comes alive to serve you. A city of living green traveling over blue horizons where you don't become one with nature, but nature becomes one with you. From riding on the backs of whales and dragonflies to lounging on gentle lily pads and inside of fragrant flowers, or a million other things in between, there is always something for you on Telos. Telos, a world made for you.
4. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. This is Beacon Space ReDiscovery, and hopefully you had a nice break, got some water, and took care of anything you needed to, while we get back into working on our characters' backstory and relationships between each other. So, let's get started then. So, who has ideas for their background that we should start with? And we can start making some notes. If nobody else is quite ready to go first, I can get started.
Yeah, I think our characters are boring and familiar, and definitely not me stalling for time. So why don't you start first, Xavier?
Sure, I can do that. So, even though it's much later in character setup, I already know what my call sign is going to be. So I'm going with the call sign Gaz for the character. I don't have their full name picked out yet, but it seems to be that the relationship with the call sign is more important for the name of the characters within Ironsworn. So, yeah, I'm going to go with Gaz, and given I just picked Trader as the last background, I definitely think that they come from one of the trade unions. That's where they're just found their most recent success, and probably were fairly successful in getting a ship handed over to them, probably ran that ship very well, and then was like, hey, Space Union people, I don't want to actually run a trucking, I want to explore and go find new resources and new ways for us to expand our operation and bring new people in. So there's a space trucking union that I'm in the process of working out some lore for, but it's called Isolite Freight, is I think probably the one I was most historically interacted with, and it's a name at least one of you might recognize. It came up in a lore stream, and I don't have the character name on hand because I have a note in my lore doc that I need to find the character that you represented and voiced, Demise, but there is a new investor in Isolite Freight that just took over controlling interest, and I think has this influx of money has allowed them to go out and build and find captains for an exploration wave. So I think it makes sense that if we're taking that lens that I have that I'm bringing the spaceship as a part of my character background, that this link here into the Isolite Freight makes a lot of sense.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I knew I recognized that name from something, but I couldn't quite put my finger on it.
Yeah, I thought it was for free agents. That makes sense.
It may have shown up in free agents as well. There was the mods of the Discord server for Unrestricted Warfare have a list of 10 or 12 that we came up
gotcha.
of names for different trader unions. So they've shown up in a few different things. They've come up in lore stream snippets. I'm working on a more complete document for them, so that's why I know quite a few of them. But that's the way it works. So yeah, so I'm thinking that's sort of where probably the spaceship comes from. So it in a weird thing, this ship was probably retrofitted with better defensive and offensive armory capabilities than perhaps the ship originally had, because I think it's probably a frigate-sized ship, which I've named the generic name of this class of ship within the unions, the trucker unions, a hauler class ship. So we probably have some hauler class spaceship that's been designed for exploration with minimal defensive combat. Right. So this isn't a ship that's, it's not a military navy vessel. It doesn't have a lot of weaponry, but it has plenty of cargo space. There's probably well-appointed bunks. This is probably actually one of the better ships to want to room in. I suspect most of the crew actually has, they may have their own space rather than just their own bunk. The the capacity of the ship may be that it can support a much larger crew, but actually that's a detriment when exploring, right? You need to strike a balance between a reasonable enough crew to run and manage the ship, but unlike in cargo operations, you're not quickly needing to offload and onload cargo. Your cargo demand is very different, so actually the resource consumption is something we're keeping a track of. So the general thing is that a ship of this size could probably, depending on the different factions creation or whatever, probably support a crew of a couple hundred, has been the thought. But I would suspect as an exploration ship, the crew is maybe 50 people at most. Like, it's a very trimmed down crew.
So what you're saying is I'm not getting my own personal butler.
Not a butler, but you would get your own bunk.
I'll take it. But yeah, no, perfect. I think that's really smart, and also, I think this actually informs. I think. So again, this show is in conjunction with, of course, Xavier and the Unrestricted Lorefare server and channels and all that stuff. So as Enderfriend already did earlier, thank you, Enderfriend. With the shout out for their Twitch channel, there's also a YouTube channel out there that has all of the VODs for all of the previous episodes if you're at all interested in going back and checking those out or seeing what we mean when we're talking about free agents. But this actually does a really nice tie-in for Seymour if I can go next. Yeah.
It's fine by me.
Because way back when I had any amount of free time, and I was able to participate in more free agents shows, I did start a sort of side plot, which you guys can all keep a secret, right? I mean, it's only Xavier and Ilaria and the rest of the internet.
They'll never tell anybody. Chat's very good.
Exactly. It's Calbrecht and I were working on a side plot where there are the agent handlers those are the ones who take care of all of the free agents, and Seymour Valentine was on the way of trying to make himself into a made man. He wanted to be an agent handler Wolf's sort of retinue, in much the same way that a different character that will not be named but absolutely did deserve what he got coming to him was a member of the retinue for agent handler Greek Fire, I think it was. So yeah, there is some connecting plots therein, but I think Seymour's thing is probably this is a job for agent handler Wolf. Whether it's because agent handler Wolf wants Isolite Freight to work out, or if this is maybe something specifically for Gaz or something else, I think it's Seymour Valentine has a vested interest, maybe not in making sure that Gaz comes back, but maybe the ship itself comes back, something along those lines. So it's a job, but it's a job within a job. So
Cool.
And even though we have Seymour Valentine as the full name of the character, the bit is, old Seymour couldn't hit the broadside of a barn if he had 7 shots, because revolver and the whole 9 yards. So his nickname is 7 shots because that's the number of shots it takes for him to hit something.
Which in any combat we hope turns out to be false, but his reputation does precede him.
He's had a couple of good moments, which was mainly me spending all of the luck points early in the session. And he's had a couple of bad moments, which was me spending all the luck points early in the session and us not being done with combat yet. So, you know.
Cool.
There are no luck points in this system as far as it works out exactly, so.
not quite.
Mhm.
Well, Ilaria, I think that pushes us
Yeah.
around to your background then.
Yeah. So, kind of interestingly, so you mentioned the free agents. So, as we know, Proxy, one of the other drones I play, is a free agent and just loves doing bad things, but more like shiny things. Here, I think I'd like to explore a slightly different aspect of Zenith, where one of Zenith's first members is Codex, who is a information hoarding machine. Honestly, they're more of a mainframe data center than anything else at this point, and they just love new things so much. And the thing about being a data center is that you can't really go out and find new things. So, the others of Zenith tend to come and bring them nice things, like shiny things in Proxy's case, for here in temporary name Gecko's case. Cool things they find out in the middle of space where there's less likely to get shot, but also you can just rummage around and just find weird stuff that people just left in the middle of nowhere.
Zenith has the potential to be the most horrifying monster out of all of us, but also regularly is just a cool, relaxed friend.
Yeah, I imagine originally they were made to repair spaceships, continued repairing spaceships after they became part of Zenith, and now are just like, cool, the spaceships go where there's weird stuff. Let's stay. This is fun.
Yeah.
That actually raises, I think, an interesting proposal for how we met then. I actually have a note about this Space Trucker Union, the Isolite Freight, that they most recently discovered some interesting technological discovery that allows for easier ship manufacturing. And the idea is it allows for them to build their spaceships much faster, and has an increase in repair speed associated with it.
Okay.
And so perhaps it was that interplay between exploring around cool things and an Isolite freight ship with name yet to be decided that Gaz was piloting. Maybe the same one that we have now, maybe a different one, that we ran into each other with. Probably a different one. If that was if we actually met at the discovery of the technology, and the new ship is one built with that technology built in.
Sometimes you're looking for cool stuff and you accidentally help optimize ships.
God, there's some sort of aberrant signal that just taught Gecko how to make the world's best subsystem drive or something like that.
Yeah. Look, sometimes you have access to the secrets of the universe, but what you really want is just to find where the universe is put the cool colored sticky notes or something.
Discovering together. Does that work for our
I think that sounds
relationship
good.
then? Cool. Any ideas on how Gecko and Seven Shot met or see each other?
I think that partially depends on how long has Seymour been with the ship.
That's a good question.
I 100% think Gaz had a horror movie moment when he heard like footsteps on like the inside of the hull, and like Gaz went to check and couldn't find them. And like at some point in time, like Gaz would like go up to like the security cameras inside the ship system, and there'd be like an instant noodle bowl with like some chopsticks in it, but there's no instant noodle inside it anymore. And it's just Seymour was like bumming on the inside of the ship without telling Gaz for a little bit.
Okay. So, Gaz. When.
Did you sneak on, or did the crew just not tell Gaz?
A little bit of column A, a little bit of column B.
Joined crew, asking the rest of the purple shirts. I'm coining that to keep
nice,
the
nice.
To keep their presence a secret from the. Does Gaz have the title captain? Do we think? Or is it like
so
notionally captain?
I don't know how it works for non-military organizations. I think commanders can pilot a vessel but are like lower in rank. It might be Commander Gaz.
We'll leave the title in quotes. We don't know if that's the correct one or not then.
Yeah.
Secret Commander Gaz to see how long they could pull this off. When did Gaz discover the ruse?
I think almost immediately, right? Like, I don't think Gaz is incompetent. I think Seymour is good at some things, but I don't think hiding as a stowaway is one of them, you know, so...
Right, so Gaz discovered with the ruse within a day. Was it an embarrassing way that Seven Shot was discovered, or was it like completely incidental and like doing the job you were supposed to be doing, and Gaz like came in to do the job because we knew that there was nobody on the crew doing it yet, and they just ran into each other that way? I guess the question seems to be, was Seymour being competent or incompetent at the time they were discovered?
You know, again, a big part of his narrative is that he is very lucky, but I think in this particular instance it would actually be, he was doing something maybe inconsequential, very embarrassing. He might have been sleeping in like Gaz's bed or something, because he like assumes Gaz's bed would be the most comfortable out of everyone in the ships.
When Seven Shot picked the wrong cabin to try and sleep in.
Exactly.
Nice. So how long I guess that does leave that still leaves how long you've been a part of the crew ambiguous. Are you did you join then, as we like, if we're assuming we're leaving out of Tellus Station, did you like just join the crew recently?
Yeah, I think it's probably a very new. Seymour is a very new addition, right? Probably very
So
not
we'll
like,
with, like within a month would be my thought.
I think
like,
within a month would be perfect.
Which I guess leads to what does Gecko think of Seven Shot?
Or similarly, what does Seven Shot think of Gecko?
Either way.
Well, because we tangentially know each other already, right?
Yes, so that's the thing, is that you don't know Gecko, but Zenith knows Seymour. Because as spacey and sometimes insolent as Proxy is, they do still share an awareness with Zenith. So I don't think it's anything. I don't think it's anything bad, because I don't think Proxy had any particular bad encounters with Seymour. I think Gecko's honestly mostly just curious about, like, why are you here? This person that I know from somewhere else. And also, like, why don't you know who I am? Like, conceptually they know, but they're also curious about how that works.
No.
Yeah, I'm wondering if, because does Gecko look similar to Zenith, or
Similar to Proxy?
similar to Proxy? Excuse me.
Not really. Asterisk, I've not finalized their design 100%, but Proxy is a little flying dragonfly gremlin, and Gecko is does not fly, climbs, and is probably a similar size to Proxy, but is very much like more lizard-like than insectile. So, I mean, they would introduce themselves as part of Zenith. If Seymour would remember the significance of that, is up to you.
Oh, let me tell you something. That man's head is full of bullet casings. He has no idea what a Zenith is.
Which is honestly probably the part that Gecko is more confused about. They're like, alright, sure, you don't know me, that's fair, but you've been introduced to Zenith.
You're one of them, robots, and...
Indeed.
I knew a robot once. Didn't seem to do much of the, hard lifting, but it seemed really useful when it came to things involving computers and whatnot, so...
Fair enough, fair enough. Gecko, like, who could that be? Proxy's terrible at computers.
Have I managed to get the
I think so, yeah.
relationship down well then?
Yeah, I think that's perfect.
Cool. Well then, it looks like the next thing to figure out is the ship. Oh no, excuse me, it's the background valves.
Oh, I forgot we did these. Uh-oh.
Perhaps we should skip that for the moment and go onto the ship then.
Perhaps. Just because we are potentially running a little short on time.
Yeah, so let's skip onto the ship. So I've already given it the IFS prefix, but I don't really have a name that is immediately coming to mind. Was kind of thinking it would make sense if this was something maybe about recording a story. Perhaps it's the IFS Legacies. So the Isolate Freight Ship Legacies, or Legacy.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, you go.
I was just saying I do like that.
I was gonna say, do we want to do that thing like in Collapsing Empire, where every ship has like a full sentence as its name, or do we want to keep it, pretty to the point?
Maybe we could add to it as the story goes on.
Ooh.
I like that
we've
idea.
only just started out, yeah.
We can build out a paragraph name for the story, for the ship, as it defines its legacy in the world.
Yeah, like all the titles of knights and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Will be like
Yeah.
Sir Brian, who did blah 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 and killed this guy and ran through the big forest, etc., etc.
You said my activation phrase, like knights. I'm game.
Nice. Well, Then the IFS Legacy is an exploration vessel of the Holler-class frigate, refitted to hold a crew of 50 with individual bunks, and substantial cargo space dedicated towards keeping the crew alive and healthy, rather than cargo pallets. I'm sure we can come up with some more systems of the ship as we pick some assets out for it, if we indeed do.
Yeah.
Now, if I recall, the spaceship itself gives us a asset thing about it.
It does.
It allows us to
that's
advance. We can spend experience to we can spend experience to equip the ship with modules, as it has a similar description to what I've just said.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think the spaceship has cryo sleep, to answer a question that came up in Twitch chat.
Now, the assets aren't a hard and fast rule. So if for some reason, a viewer is very compelled by that, or that's something that we want in the moment, it's absolutely something that we can work towards. But it's not a default system or something that comes with the Starforged rules.
Yep. Well, let's see what's next. That may take care of defining the ship for now. Yeah, envision the nature and give it a name. Cool.
Nice. We're on top of it.
So we get to choose our final assets then, if we're gonna continue to slowly nudge past the vow creation.
I don't know why it's in the middle. You don't need to do it in the middle.
Yeah, we'll just move it along. It's fine. So let's go pick out our final assets. Same order as last time, which means Demistus first.
So I'm trying to avoid making a boring fight boy, but
You are allowed.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that in Free Agents, basically at some point in time, Seymour gets Seymour envisioned himself getting a lever action rifle because he's a space cowboy. What he got instead was a bioactive sniper rifle from the Children of the Vein. I do not trust them. They are a menace. Children of the Vein, if you're watching, this is an at call. I'm onto you. I'm onto your theories and conspiracies.
Why does Seymour not trust Children of the Vein?
But anyways, honestly, I think it's just that Seymour has not gone to a doctor in 10 years.
Fair enough.
But I think actually a third path for Sniper would make sense here. And let me switch transition back to Roll20. But yeah, I do think Sniper makes the most sense for both Luminous Rose and also for just this is his thing, is if the IFS Legacy does get some sort of gunnery department, that's probably where Seymour slots into. But otherwise, yeah, I think the whole thing is that Seymour is bristling with guns, and his objective is to either protect Gaz and or maybe Gecko and or maybe the ship and abandon the other two. Who knows? So,
Much appreciated.
That makes sense. I guess that makes it my turn then, right? Well, I think I want to do something as a ship module, because I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think I want to take Vehicle Bay, actually, as my my choice here, which will allow us to purchase or upgrade a support vehicle for one last experience, and when we repair a battered support vehicle, we spend 1 repair point instead of 2. Yeah.
Okay, very cool.
I'm gonna make a character sheet for the ship, by the way.
Okay. Makes sense. Because there's like a section on our general one, but
Yeah, I prefer a shared sheet.
yeah.
Then I think that makes it your turn, Hilaria.
So I'm kind of between two. Because I was kind of thinking that Survey Bot might be interesting in that, like, maybe since Gecko isn't the tiniest thing, going into like smaller places to see things and like report back to them. But I was also looking at internal refit.
An interesting choice, yeah.
Yeah, because they have spent an amount of time on the ship, like getting it just so, and I think that does narratively make sense. So I'm curious on thoughts.
Internal refit was the other module I was looking at, so that's pretty funny that you were considering it as well.
Yeah, that sounds perfect to me as well.
Okay, yeah.
In an ideal world, yeah, I do really like. I think all of us have our roles, and I think unless it's in a wave mission, maybe we're in entirely separate parts of the ship. But when the time comes, the time really comes, you know?
Yeah. I also think internal refit is interesting in the context that Gecko definitely climbs around more than they walk around, so there's just like weird like holes and things, I think. And you're like, why is there a hole there? And Gecko just goes, and you're like, oh, I guess that's why. That's weird.
It's rather than maintenance corridors, it's like small little maintenance tunnels for Gecko.
Yeah, because like they're not tiny, but they are very like flexible. I imagine. So you look at it and you're like, the way that cats do, where you look at a thing, you're like, a cat can't fit through there, and they do, and you're like, okay, fair enough.
Makes sense to me. So you're going with internal refit?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting one.
Cool. I put it on the ship's character sheet. Well, that picks our final assets, so I guess we get to arrange stats. We get some values to arrange across our 5 stats, so Edge, Heart, Iron, Shadow, Wits. We get 1 3, 2 2s, and 2 1s.
Yep. Placing the ones is always the hardest part.
Yeah. So, maybe it would help if somebody that we should introduce these stats, somebody who knows them a little bit better, should describe where they're relevant.
Yes, let me
though.
find a little description. Oh, here they are. So, Edge, you can kind of think of as like your dexterity equivalent. It's how fast you are, how good at range you are, how good at reacting you are. Heart, it's the most similar to charisma, but it's a bit more than that. It's kind of like your ability to talk to people, to be brave, but also like withstand mental challenges. Like resolve falls under it as well. Iron is like your physical strength. How tough you are, it's kind of a combination of constitution and strength. It also is your physical combat stat. If you're up close and personal fighter, you probably have high iron. Shadow is your sneakiness stat, both in physical sneakiness and lying. And then wits is interestingly not the trickery stat. It's about like logic and knowing both things and knowing skills, as well as observing situations.
Well, I've got my stat alignment then. I'm going to go 1 edge, 2 heart, 1 iron, 2 shadow, and 3 wits.
Nice. Seymour is all about that heart, baby. So he is going for 3 heart. He's going to go for 2 edge and 2 iron. Oh, nope. I've already made a mistake. Don't worry about that.
You needed to hit the edit button first. I fixed it for you. Congratulations, though, on that roll plus heart. It was a strong hit.
Perfect. Everything we ever wanted. Yeah, 3 heart, 2 ed, 2 iron, and Seymour, by virtue of being found immediately and being found in a very embarrassing way, has 1 in shadow and 1 in wits.
Nice.
I'm still placing mine because I'm indecisive.
This is one of the important character decisions, so it makes sense to take some time on it.
Mhm.
Yeah. Ooh.
Good news is our next step should already be done, because it's just setting all the default
Excellent.
values. So while you decide, I'm gonna read ahead
Okay.
and see what's up next.
Sounds good.
Looks like the final parts are just finalizing some character description, which I think we'll all take care of off stream, just so we can introduce our characters when we have our first gameplay session. That makes the most sense.
Doing it with the background values is actually going to be really nice. So we open it up, we get our appearance, and we say what our background values are, which will be super cool for sure.
Absolutely.
And then, if we want to just sort of go a little bit over the actual system itself, because I know Ironsworn isn't, making the rounds in the same way that, some of your grandparents' role-playing games are. Ironsworn has 2 big conceits over. I say 2 big conceits. Ironsworn does not play like Dungeons and Dragons or any other D20 system that exists out there, but instead relies on 2d6. So what Lich was commenting on earlier about the dice roll, which you'll see down here, is I accidentally had chose to roll plus heart. We would roll 3 dice in total, one of which is the action score, which would be 1 die plus the 2 dice that I roll to see if I succeed in doing the thing. Oh wait, no, sorry. The action score is what I roll to see what Seymour does, and then the challenge dice are to set the difficulty of the particular thing. So the reason why this qualifies as a strong hit is because Seymour rolled a 7. The challenge dice both are numbers lower than a 7, so Seymour succeeds unequivocally. Whereas with that roll, Lich, with a 6, you get a weak hit. You did succeed in surpassing one of the challenge dice, but not the other.
Alright, I think
And-
I'm all set. Oops, sorry.
Perfect. Yeah, no, go for it.
So what I have right now is 2 edge, 1 heart, 2 iron, 1 shadow, and 3 wits, which I don't know if we want to double up on top stat. That was the only bit I was a little bit hesitant about.
I've got no issues with it.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't think there's anything wrong.
There's only 5 stats, so it's
Yeah.
not that hard to double up.
Yeah.
There will also come a point in time if we do choose to just go based off of default assets, we will absolutely double up on the assets in use. So,
You don't get that many.
that's
Like, I
true.
suppose it depends how long it goes.
Exactly. I foresee this being a multi-hundred episode massive success. It'll be just like what's that one anime with the straw hat guy whose arms
One
go
Piece.
very strong? One Piece. It'll be just like One. But yeah.
Well, it sounds like, since we're getting close to wrapping up time here, it sounds like when you see us next, we'll have better character descriptions. We'll have each come up with our background vows, and those are the goal that our character is trying to achieve. In the system, it's an epic vow, I believe. So it takes quite a long time to achieve it. So those will be the things that make us unique in the world and what we're all trying to achieve. And hopefully you'll get to join us in Medias Res next time as we jump right into the action wherever a disastrous place our crew happens to be.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure we have time to fully draft out a starting setting, but I certainly vote for us already being in the middle of a discovery run, as I think they should be called.
Yeah.
And we are somewhere away from Tellus, hopefully finding ourselves some trouble to deal with.
Damn, I was hoping for a nice, long, peaceful DMV scene where you register the legacy's name and we have to have all the proper forms.
Maybe we could do that as like a flashback at some point. It's like an end credit scene.
That makes a good, yeah, that would make a good end credit scene. You should write that idea down so that we can do it.
I'll write it down right now.
Sweet.
But yeah, I do want to say massive thank you, Xavier, for letting me be a part of this. I know it's an idea that's been rattling around in our heads for a little bit, and honestly, just super excited to be here. Sorry to everyone for the tech issues on my side. If you were with this stream from the get-go, you might have noticed that for some reason my mic and audio output wasn't capturing. So I was scrambling around towards the top of it. Thank you guys all so much for your patience. I've got a Twitter, I've got other social media, but honestly, everything is lighting itself on fire, so who knows what'll be here tomorrow. But you guys already know where I am here, on Twitch. We're not going to be doing Rediscovery for a little bit, I don't think we said, right?
No, we get the classic thing of the holidays are going to cause some interruption, and then I think the general plan is to try and get approximately 2 sessions in a month, with perhaps a goal being every other week, but I'm sure things will arise that don't allow us to ever hit that schedule quite perfectly for anything long enough to call it a schedule. Because that's the way scheduling works, right? You go, oh, we're going to make this bi-weekly thing, and then 20 sessions in, you're like, it's never been strictly bi-weekly for more than 3 sessions in a row, so can we really say it's bi-weekly? So twice a month is probably our goal, and the session lengths will be about as long as the stream we've done today, so we'll be aiming for a 3-hour session. And perhaps in the near future, when Demeist gets around to making a Patreon or some other way of supporting him to get exclusive content, you'll get to be able to take advantage of watching a post-show discussion between the three of us as we chat about the show in a post-stream way, only available to those who are supporting him in such a way. This is totally not a call-out that he's supposed to have gotten that done and hasn't yet.
Oh, heavens. I mean, you ain't wrong, bro.
But anyway, yeah. So I'm excited to get to play Rediscovery and see and discover these things on the frontiers of Beacon Space and see what it's like for those who have yet to be reintegrated into the transit network of Beacon Space, or those who are just on their way traveling towards Beacon Space, or those who are aiming to stay as far away as possible and are very upset that we have finally arrived. But we'll get to see what those are like in the near future.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I was just gonna say, if the folks in the chat have any favorite bits from this or things they're looking forward to, if you guys want to say, we can all be aware of what you're looking forward to. Maybe we can take some suggestions at some point in the future.
Very true.
Yeah, absolutely. So places to make suggestions, of course, Twitch chat when we're live with the show. We will be reading chat, and we've acknowledged it some today. It's a little bit easier today in the sort of session 0 setup to interact with chat. During the sessions, I'm sure that'll be a little bit harder to do, but you may have noticed that a few of us in between places when we were conversing did leave some comments in text. So we are reading your commentary, even if the engagement isn't quite the same as you might be used to with Demeist or even myself during the streams. We are reading your comments, and we do appreciate them. And who knows, maybe you'll see your suggestions and inspirations show up in the session. Other places to leave comments, though, if you're interested in learning more about the world of Beacon Space overall and contributing to the established fiction of the region of Beacon Space, which is well known to our world, you could join the Unrestricted Warfare Discord channel, where you can choose to join a faction and participate in generating orders for the monthly faction turn, as well as lore to help better define Beacon Space. And who knows, maybe when Rediscovery returns back to Telestation, we'll see some impacts of that on station, given the melting pot that Telestation is. And you can also get to create some lore for the monthly, semi-monthly, we just talked about regular scheduling, it's hard, lore streams that get run here, where you can get to see your cool things presented on stream. And who knows, maybe if you create an in-fiction ad for a product or some organization, it'll show up in the ad breaks that we're running on Rediscovery as well. Did I miss shilling anything for Unrestricted Warfare there, Demeist? You keep telling me I got to get better at these sales pitches. I think that one may have been better.
It's significantly better. Also, again, the YouTube channel, which I've already been hammering on the door about. But yeah, no, that was excellent, Xavier. Yeah.
Well, now that I've taken the chance to tell people where they can find out more about, I guess, me and Beacon Space overall, how about yourself? Where can fine viewers find you, and what else do you do other than help write cool lore for a sci-fi setting?
Yeah, if you're already on my channel, you know the drill. Tomorrow and Wednesday are going to be Phantom Thieves of Hearts here on Twitch. We're also going to be doing tomorrow a little bit of Mass Builder, fulfilling Anya's 3-month-old request to try and make a mecha that looks like Phoenix Wright, which, is just super easy and totally doable, and I've definitely not been putting off. And then, I upload VODs from my streams onto YouTube as well. We have a links command if people are interested. But again, that's been relatively sporadic, although I do intend to make separate videos on that YouTube channel eventually. And then finally, as Lich had hinted at earlier, I am starting to do little subscriber specials. So if you are interested at all in the things that I discuss or seeing more of that, I have Demeist After Dark every other Fridays. And then in addition to those, I'll be posting those VODs eventually to some sort of Patreon or something. So yeah, that's basically it from me, Xavier. So you got a place you want to throw our 2 chats out at?
I don't know, but before we do that, Alaria, you have any last words you want to share?
Ooh, true.
Hi. I don't stream on Twitch. I mod chat on Twitch. You can find me in Demeist chat most days. Or on Discord at any of the mentioned servers here. So yeah, I'll be around. You can find me. Planning on hopefully doing some art for the next session, so we'll have to see how that goes, and maybe we can get some cool character stuff done for that.
Well, that's exciting, and I know both Demeist and I thank you very much for your mod abilities in both of our Twitch channels. So thank you very much for that.
Welcome.
Seriously incredible stuff. I know I've mentioned this 1,000 times because actually Xavier is also one of my mods. I am still trying to figure out a way to thank you guys for all your work, I promise.
We wrote the note down and everything.
Yeah, we added the note that told you to thank us. Yeah, that's the way that works. But with that said, you had asked if we had someone to throw it off to, and I don't think I do. So perhaps you've got someone to recommend?
We could send it over to. I've got a friend, Hello Tonka, who is streaming Final Fantasy XIV right now. So I don't know if that's anyone's cup of tea, but back when Tonka was just starting out for his 100 follower celebration, he invited me to guest on Dungeons and Dragons. So just could be a cute little thing to do. Stop by, say hello, drop him a follow if you felt so inclined. So yeah. It looks like he's about to go onto an ad break, so you know how it goes.
Well, that's the best time to go show up, because then we get to help contribute to the ad revenue.
That's true. And he won't be busy doing something else.
Yeah,
Sounds like a plan.
That's hello, the word, Tonka like the truck. And yeah. My raid is ready whenever you. Yeah.
Well, that sounds good to me, everyone. Thanks for joining us today on, the collaboration Demeist and Unrestricted Lore Fair's Beacon Space ReDiscovery. We'll see you whenever the next session is, with hopefully an exciting show for you then. Thanks so much for joining us.
Bye.